Hey guys, we're back with another episode of the Flexwork Podcast. Today I'm so excited because we get to introduce you to a local, is legend too early to
Yeah,
name you
it's a little too early.
But Chef Brian Walter, who is the executive chef at 87 Sussex, who's kind of been around the block a few times with different places that you've been involved in. I'm so excited to have you. How's it going?
All right, thanks for having me, for sure.
So
yeah.
I've tried the food at 87. It took a couple months, but it's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So you got to tell us, how did they find you?
Well, actually, I was in New York at the time. I was executive chef at a restaurant called Carmine. It's on 44th Street.
Yeah,
in
we've
New
heard
York.
of it.
Yeah, great place, very cool place. Certainly, they weren't asking me to do anything regarding the menu changes. It's a menu that works and all this other stuff. But
What's that menu, like 1,000 years old?
It's I guess 1990.
1990. Wow.
I think they opened like right around then. But what a great, cool community, great place to work, great team to work for. But anyways, I had to take care of my mother, so who got ill, and after I was done taking care of her, I ended up finding a headhunter who got me this great opportunity to open a brand new high-end restaurant in Jersey City. Jersey City doesn't have any restaurants of this French, new American cuisine at all. I mean, at all. So it was just one wonderful opportunity, and it's right near the water, so I loved it.
So was this the first time you got to plan out the whole menu yourself?
No.
Okay.
No. So, no, I've opened a lot of restaurants in this awesome career that I've been blessed to have. My first executive chef job was Acqua Ristorante.
Oh, wow.
Which was in Raritan, New Jersey.
Right.
A lot of people think it's Bridgewater, but whatever, 202. And we then turned that into Char Steakhouse.
That's right.
Yeah, so Char
I was
Steakhouse
wondering
was
what happened to that because it's not around anymore. Okay.
No, we got the stars. That was where I got my stars. That's where I got my James Beard nomination. This was where I originally showed up on the map doing new Italian food. Really, truly. I mean, it was, people call it Northern Italian, whatever it was. But I just went up and down the boot. I just really loved it.
You have to explain this to me. So my wife and I went to Italy for our honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
We went up and down, north to south. I couldn't tell really the difference though. What are the main differences in North Italian food versus South Italian food?
All right, great. Well, I don't look at it as North and South.
Yeah.
I look at
But what do everyone else consider the main things?
Well, if you look at it this way, right? So if you're down in if you're in the South where you have Calabria or Sicily or Sardinia or Trapanese or Livorno or all these awesome areas, you're going to have the tomatoes, the capers, the pine nuts, the raisins, the seafood is outrageous, all that other stuff.
So
There's so many influences. It's ingredients for 100%.
Got it.
And then you go to if you're going to Rome, it's the port.
Right.
So you have all the stuff that's coming in from everywhere else and everything that's going out. So you have you have to remember tomatoes came from the New World. They're not Italian.
That's right. Okay.
Right. So that's where tomatoes really went to Rome. From the boats that showed up. And
what was in Italian food before the tomatoes came?
That's a really good question. So, but I really do think they had once again, there was the southern part was really lots of seafood.
Yeah.
But as you move up though, so let's talk about as you're moving up, as you move inward, you have Tuscany, you have lots of cool meats and things like this. And then you get to Emilio Romano, where you have the Parmigiano Reggianos and Prosciutto di Parmas and all that other cool stuff. And then you even hit up top and you're in let's say Friuli, and that borderlines I guess Switzerland and France. So you have all these Montaggio cheeses and these fricos and all this other cool stuff that you would never even think about having, in Sicily. You know what I mean? So there is these dramatic differences, for sure.
So what part do you love the most? North, South? When it comes to the ingredients?
I love it all.
You love it all.
I really do, because each you can just go to one little region and just really break it apart to all the cool foods and everything. I love the whole boot.
We love the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wherever we went, we did whatever chef tastings there were. We went to a couple of Michelin spots. It was phenomenal. But it's cool to see that we have some of those types of things here in Jersey.
Yeah.
Right? And the city and all the other places that
Yeah.
we've been in. So, let's talk about the menu that you designed for 87 Sussex. Tell us, what was your inspiration? Some of these things are super unique. I don't think I've been anywhere in New Jersey that serves frog legs.
Yes. Well, that's funny, the frog leg situation. So, although this is new French, a lot of people don't realize that when I was at Le Cirque, the owners, Ciro Macchioni, the Macchioni family. So it's an Italian family. So although it was very, very French, there was an big Italian aspect to it, and it had to be traditional Italian because Serio's going to come in and eat it.
Right.
The boss is going to come in. He dedicated a whole. So although he brought in a lot of chefs from France, he also brought in a lot of chefs from Italy. So anyways, with that, the frog legs. So that obviously it's a very classical French thing to say. Although they're not the only ones in the world that eat frogs, obviously. But I wanted to call. So I figured when I got to New Jersey, right, and we opened the Aqua Ristorante. I wanted to use truffles. I wanted to use all the things that I was the caviar, the foie gras, all the cool stuff. But because they are using it in Italy, France doesn't own these ingredients, and it was an Italian restaurant. But frog legs. I started to think to myself, I think I might be one of the only people in a very big distance in the great state of New Jersey that knows how to butcher frogs.
Wait, so you butcher your own frogs?
Yeah.
Every single week?
No, not right.
Whatever?
Not at this moment. We have a butcher that does it, but at that moment, to get them in frog legs was not even a thought in New Jersey.
This is in the Aqua restaurant.
At Aqua Ristorante, yeah.
Right.
So we said, well, let's come up with a funny name for them and figure it out, like some sort of a shtick, and we came up with Hoppin' Poppers. And then we ended up opening a steakhouse. So the Hoppin' Poppers kind of got lost in the mix. So forward 20 years later, and they resurfaced in a place where I get to do cool ideas, and like we're doing the escargot tortellonis and things like this. So we get to get creative with classical ingredients like that.
So how long does it take a chef at your caliber to design a dish? Because I watched the show Chef, right? Or what was it called? Beef? Yeah, but they show these guys spending months upon months to put a menu together or a specific dish. Are these things that happen for you overnight? Are these things that you carry like a notepad in?
Yeah. So, we've been doing this a long time. So I've been doing this my first executive chef job was in 2004, which was Aqua Ristorante. So I was 24. And that's where I really had my database of what I was already doing in New York for that period of time where I wanted to show the world, Now it's my cuisine, what's developed after all these years. And a lot of it is, so for example, let's just say this. My dishes right now are like old friends that, I kind of put a different suit on them or a different dress sometimes, depending on what level of a restaurant we're at. But a lot of the dishes are the same by their natural ingredients, the freshness of them, but also the combinations of them. So for example, right now we have a quail egg ravioli. We call it the ox and egg. And it's really cool because it's oxtail on the bottom, and we do some fried leeks, and it looks like a little nest with the egg. But, that's evolved from the egg raviolis, the big ones, when we were doing an Italian restaurant.
Right.
It just got smaller and tighter, and there's fava beans now, and there's more truffles now, and so I do look at when my dishes, like I go out to the dining room a lot, and I speak to the guests, and they're like, well, which is the best thing on the menu? Which is this? And it's really hard for me to say anything because it's like, well, let me just tell you where I came up with this or why I'm doing this. And, and now where the spring menu comes out, March 20th is the first day of spring. So we've started working on that since November. So it's not like we're working on it like, all right, we have to experiment with this and experiment with that. It's constant experimenting with specials.
Since November. Wow.
Well, yeah. That's your specials moving forward. So you're not going to have the spring ingredients at that time, but you can start messing around with those flavors. And you already kind of know. I already know a few dishes I want to do in spring, but like, how do I elevate it to a level where the guest is like, oh wow, what did you come up with that? But
so let's talk about that, right? When you create a menu change, there's got to be a bunch of people involved in approving that, right? Or is it just you?
Depending on where you're at, how big the company is. But typically, the menu's bigger. Like right now, it's probably has an extra 15 items on it, and it will shrink.
Okay.
That's really all it is. So let's say we start in November. The menu will just kind of shrink as we taste it and as I show either the owner or whoever is involved in that tasting. At this moment, we really just give the tasting to the staff so they know what it is. So we train our wait staff.
So interestingly enough, I don't think everyone knows what a chef tasting is. When you do like a chef tasting experience. I know 87 is currently not doing that. Do you know if that's something that's ever in the talks?
Yeah, it's great. Well, we just started, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because once again, we've actually it took about a year to develop our cuisine. It's not just a new way of looking at French food, although that is still there. It's also now it's 87 Sussex food. Now we have some items that are staples. Now we have some customers that will be coming just for certain items. So now we're developing our cuisine. So now if you're doing that, why don't you come for a tasting of 87 Sussex cuisine, which is important.
So if you had to describe what a tasting is to someone who's never had a tasting experience, how would you describe it?
Small portions with that's a great question. It's smaller portions of my menu. This is how I'm doing my tastings.
Yeah.
Small portions of my menu, so you can go through a lot of the journey I'm taking you on from the beginning, which might be an amuse-bouche, might be a 1,000-layer potato with caviar, and then we'll go all the way to the entree, which might be a spezzettino or something like that.
I love how you just like randomly say 1,000 layers with caviar, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
It just like flows out of your mouth.
Yeah.
So I remember my first experience of having money and wanting to elevate myself from the TGIFs and the Applebee's and Olive Garden and so on and so forth to go to like nicer restaurants. And I remember I took this girl out on a date. We get to the restaurant and I'm like looking for prices on the menu and I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I was like, what am I gonna do here? Because I don't know what these things cost. I've come to find out it's a tasting experience and we get to walk through everything. You know what this waiter told me? He was like, a tasting experience is like ordering the sampler at Applebee's. You get to try a little bit of everything, and then you can see what you like and don't like. It is definitely not like the sampler at Applebee's by any means whatsoever, because course after course that would come out, it would blow my mind in different ways.
Yeah.
I never saw that girl again because the date went well, but she just was like, I can't keep up with a guy that like eats like this.
Yeah.
Little did she know, like this was my first time going to one of these things because I had to play it up, obviously.
Yeah. Sure.
But I think these tasting experiences, they're things that people need to do with great company, right? And they get to experience the best of what a restaurant is offering at any given moment. And that's the part that I think is the most exciting, especially when it's a restaurant that changes their tasting menu. Because when you revisit them again in 3 months or a week or whatever it is, certain chefs will adjust some of the items on the tasting menu because they know that person's coming back. And I'm sure you have those regulars.
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, chef, can you like just toss around something for me? And that's probably when you get to experiment with these dishes on the new menu.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
I
think, I change my menu so often that they don't really have to say that to me. When they come in, there's already going to be 6 specials. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because we're always experimenting. We're always trying to take, but it all stems from the roots of whether it be French or Italian. I mean, those are really the two, but who doesn't love Spain and Portugal and everything else? Like, I mean, it's just awesome food. Yeah, it's like, what a privilege to be able to work with whatever ingredients I want at any time I want.
Okay, so let's say that I have an audience of like 110,000 people that watch this show. Right.
All right. Well,
a good 20,000 of them are from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And if they want to get to know who Chef Brian Walter is, how would you describe yourself in 30 seconds? Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Great chef.
Forget about how handsome I am.
Handsome.
You know what? I will say this. As a chef, the way I'd explain myself is I'm at your service. And this is really what a chef does. This is the essence of a chef. Really all we're trying to do, the bottom line, is recreate that experience at grandma's house, but in an elevated way, or your mom, or whoever that cook in your family might be. It's our job to not mess around with the flavor profile. If anything, try to enhance it if you can, but certainly and elevate that. And then the hospitality you feel when you do go to, once again, grandma's house or whatever house you remember going to as a child and having that food and that experience and that family. And it can be refined. It can be very little things. It can be sexy dishes, or it can be, family style dishes. But that feeling is what I try to expose or replicate, rather.
You're so humble. It's impressive. I mean,
it is what it is.
I feel like
it's not me. It's the
people
brigade.
With your resume would just be like, I'm a James Beard award-winning or award-nominated, whatever the term is, right?
Sure.
Chef who is in charge of probably the best restaurant in New Jersey and like all this other stuff. But you're just like, no, I'm here at your service.
Yeah, that's the gig, though. We're in the hospitality industry. We're not in the Chef Brian industry, you know. Although that might be cool. It sounds cool.
Yeah, we can make that happen though, right? One
Maybe
thing
we
at a
should
time,
start
though.
that. Then I might be a little bit more arrogant. But at this point, it's the food is if anything is where I'm arrogant. Where it's no, this is the ingredient. Don't mess with it. Keep it exactly where it needs to be. Just enhance it. You know, we're there. You know.
So there has been a huge explosion of TV shows that will showcase drama because they're nonfiction and they're storytelling, so on and so forth. But then there's also all these competitions. And in these shows, I always see this importance of like the knives or the tools that a chef has. Do you have like some special secret sauce and like the
I don't know about
knives
secret
tools?
sauce, but these are your tools, you know, and they're really important. And I feel like any trade probably has, you know, if you talk to the carpenter, I bet he has like, you know, some certain tools. But yeah, the chefs, you know, I use a Wusthof. I mean, that's my knife. So it's not, you know, you can go to elevated levels of, you know, I do a lot of catering people's houses and they have these knives that are, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. And I'm not saying they're not great. They are great, you know, but you also, they take a lot more maintenance, you know. The carbon steel alone is just, it's just a lot of maintenance. And my Wusthof works perfect for me. It was the first knife that I ever had. And actually, I still have that same exact Wusthof.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just keep it sharp and
it'll be around, it'll be on Earth way after I am.
that is impressive.
Yeah, and then the spoons are another one. So we also have spoons. They're very important. So there was this really incredible chef that I had the true privilege to work under in my youth. His name's Gray Coons. And there's a spoon called the Coon spoon.
Okay.
And we love it and we use it. It fits the perfect amount of sauce. There's different levels of the spoon. I think the basic level is like $8 for the spoon, and they're just awesome. They're perfect. Yeah, we keep them on the side. We mark them with our initials on them. I mean, they're
you've
very
had more than
special.
one.
I have now. I might have 100, and I have a few on the wall. Like there's a gold-plated one. there's a steel one, and there's just different levels of them.
Does it come gold plated, or do you gold?
No, it comes. There's certain limited edition ones. I mean, that's going a little too far. I don't use it. I put it on the wall.
Oh, trust me, man. When it comes to like my Apple accessories and like everything I have in my world, I have some limited edition stuff too that I keep around.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw upstairs. I have every camera a Garg man has ever owned.
No, but that's awesome.
I'll show it to you.
Thanks.
It's literally from the camera my grandfather bought from back in the day down to the ones that my father and his brothers bought, then to the ones that my parents bought, and then eventually mine, which obviously I've gone a little crazy now with the cameras that I have.
Yeah. But that's awesome. It makes people want to work with you, by the way.
Does
like
it?
Your passion for that. Just saying that like legitimizes everything you do. It's important.
I love the idea of creating this content and storytelling. I didn't think I would love it as much as I do, but if what I know how I feel about content is how you feel about food, it suddenly all just makes sense.
Perfect.
So let's talk about the spring menu.
All right, cool.
Is that something we could talk about?
Well, we can talk about it. It's not 100% yet. You know, it's still in my. What I do is as I'm on, you know, going through all. I have the book this big of. It's like. Because it's, you know, it might show my age, but it, you know, I hand wrote all of the recipes over and over and over. Maybe, you know, and it kind of helped me because I don't know if it's called a learning disability or whatever the heck it's called, because I really don't know. But some guys learned it way faster than me, the dishes. So I had to like study it on the subway, like, you know, over and over and write it over and over again. No, that tomato goes there, the palm salad goes there, this goes there, whatever goes, you know, and it has to be seasoned with the because the next day you have to know it, or you know, that's it, you know, you're gone. So I go through my book, you know, those days of when I did my internship with Mario Batali at his first restaurant, Poe, in New York. I'm going through those. I'm going through all the other favorite restaurants that I used to work for. I have all of those menus, which is so cool. I mean, even Per Se's first menu in New York, you know, I got to be there that day.
You were there on the first day?
A lot of us were there for free. Okay. You know, we were just there to be. It was just an awesome experience.
On like the first week, but it wasn't the first
day.
Yeah,
we weren't eating. I was in the back.
Okay.
We were there, I think, a week before, too, you know, just getting it all ready. We were there for Cafe Gray, too, for Gray Kuhn's new restaurant when he had opened that in Time Warner Building. A lot of cool stuff was happening at another time.
You're really part of the who's who in the chef circle.
Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, once again, the pyramid's like this. I was on the bottom, but I got to work with the best.
You've climbed up a few rungs since
now.
then.
Yeah, as you're getting older, you climb up, and the cooks that were on one level now move up to this level, and now we are the next generation of chefs. And we have to make new chefs too. You know, you can't just take it for granted all the stuff that we know.
Do you have an apprentice?
I have a sous chef.
Okay.
And, that's part of a chef making other chefs. When I was in New York, when I was at a place called the Union Club, my chef at the time was John Rella. And I was at I was chef de cuisine of a restaurant called Guastavino's underneath the Queensboro Bridge. And he had called me up because I'd known him since I was a kid. He was my original chef. He's like, "Can you help me here? I got here. I got to straighten some things out." And I was like, "Chef, I'm kind of really happy with this." He's like, No. You stay with me here. I'll sharpen your pencil. You're going to be an executive chef when you leave here." And I couldn't refuse. It was a great offer, and he did it. So he, because only a chef can make a chef. An owner can't make a chef. Money cannot make a chef. A chef makes a chef.
That's interesting.
That's it. It's a trade.
Because you have to learn from someone who's a master, an expert.
It's a trade, yeah. That's it.
Interesting.
The school can only give you the basics, but I guess school can only give everybody the basics of their career anyways. You have to learn.
I wish a podcaster could make another podcaster, but this is an industry where like anyone can grab a camera and just start their own show now.
But some are better than others.
Yeah, some are definitely better than others.
Yeah, and I think also regarding your industry, I think you guys are all learning from each other a little bit because I can see see certain things that you're all doing at one time to elevate the experience.
There's definitely an inner circle of guys. There's a WhatsApp thread that I have that's constantly on fire. Like, check out this new technique or check out this new tool that came out. And then I think there's just a couple of people that we secretly admire because they just they push the envelope further with the things that they do. And you always want to be able to recreate it, but you don't want to copy it 100%. I mean, I look at this room that we're in right now, and I mean, you were here when the room first opened up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's grown quite a lot since then.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's outrageous.
There's TVs, there's nicer lights, but this idea of wood slat panel walls has been around.
Yes.
There's other people who've had it.
Yes.
There's people who've done LED light panels and other things into the different spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But what most people don't know is that I can interchange these walls.
I didn't know that.
We set everything up in the studio so that seasonally, like how you change your menu, I could change the vibe of every room.
Nice.
And again, just trying to push the envelope of how we were going to do it. The way that we attach these is a little proprietary. And so that's the part that I think is cool, that when someone comes here that really knows their stuff, I will pull back the curtain a little bit to show them. And they're always like, wow, I didn't think of that. That's amazing.
There it is.
I bet it's the same for you.
Well, it is the same for me, but also, just to finalize what you're saying, but yeah, and then that person learns that, and then they take it to somebody else, and then they elevate it, and you're going to be like, hey, I came up with that idea a long time ago.
So do you ever go visit those chefs?
Oh, yeah. So we do a thing called stage, STAGE, and we do it as an adults. We did it as kids. We did it, it's always everybody. So if you think, oh, I'll never be able to work at this restaurant, I'll never be able to work at that restaurant. So just know this in your heart. Every restaurant will take free labor. So if you're not a crazy person with your knife and you can keep your knife sharp, head down. Really, those are the only two requests that we say. Head down, knife sharp. We'll guide you the rest of the way. So a lot of times when there's something cool going on, like I just said, like Per Se opened or whatever, and you got guys like Danielle and John George opening new restaurants all over the place. But we'll just go and be like, okay, they're opening. Just donate yourself as free labor, and now you're experiencing that awesome experience again and again and again and again and again, and these people start recognizing you. The reason why I went to L'Espinasse, which was in the St. Regis Hotel, was one of the 5 4-star restaurants at the time, was because I was working there on my days off at Le Cirque. So when I was at Le Cirque, and I'd been at Le Cirque, I guess 3.5, 4 years, something like that, and unfortunately we had lost the star at that time. And I don't know, my brain, I'm like, oh, I'm too young to not work at a 4-star restaurant, whatever. And L'Espinasse offered me the job. I mean, wow, and I would never have had that opportunity if I wasn't doing that for free anyways,
So who's come to visit you at 87?
87 it's I look at it, it's still an infant.
Yeah.
So but we'll do internships with the schools, Hudson Valley. I think it's called Hudson Valley. Well, one of the schools.
What I'm more curious about is who's come to visit you from that you've trained in the past or that you've worked with.
Well, one of my, so I have, as the whole thing is chefs make chefs. Certainly, Michael Coletti.
He came by.
Mike Coletti came by. Great guy. He was. I offered him the same thing that my chef had offered me, John Rella, and this is our knit. We do have a cool little community there. And I had said, hey, come with me, help me do aqua. We got to get our stars. We got to get this thing going. And it was even before Char, and he did. And I said, work with me this year, and then I'll put you at Le Cirque in New York, because we were opening a new Le Cirque. They were opening a new Le Cirque in the Bloomberg building.
Right.
I was at Le Cirque 2000. Anyways, Mike, I guess, met a guy, Spike, that was working there. Spike hit it with, I guess, the Food Network or something like this, became one of the first celebrity chefs. And they just started opening things all over the way. So I'm all over the place. So I'm super proud of Mike Coletti. Yeah, he's done really, really great. But he's one of these guys that I look at as one of my students that have crushed it. And I can kind of, if I'm going to ever pat myself on the back, that's what I'll pat myself on the back on. You dedicated the time to make somebody else a chef, and they didn't take it for granted. Because there's going to be a lot that are just like, all right, whatever. I just want to be, a caterer by myself, or come up with some idea that's never really going to happen, And the ones that stick with it make me so proud.
That's awesome. So I guess one of the next questions here are just, when it comes to having a higher end restaurant in a town like Jersey City, I'm sure it hasn't been like a overnight, like everyone just knows that this exists and like let's all go and visit this restaurant, because people aren't used to eating that kind of food. What have been the reactions from everyone? Because your food is very different. I lived in Jersey City for 10 plus years. Yeah. Your food is very different from everything else in that area.
Yeah, I guess that was the plan from the beginning, to get somewhere where people that can dress up. Yeah. For one thing, they can have that big night out. We're in Paula's Hook, which is a quiet neighborhood, so you don't have the bustle of a million different other restaurants. I mean, capitalism is certainly alive and well in Jersey City.
Sure.
You go down to the restaurant row, it's like boom, 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 boom. Everybody's kind of fighting for the same dime. Where we're in a completely quiet neighborhood, 3 blocks away from the beautiful New York City view, and everything about the restaurant is elevated. So, when people came in, even when we were slow in the beginning, because it was very hard to kind of because there are a lot of choices in Jersey City. Yeah. And you're walking by, and some people might walk by and be like, I don't want to dress up tonight. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want to be like, no, you don't have to. It's just available to, You can be casual, business casual, or whatever. But the reviews started coming in, and they were fantastic. And they were just like, I can't believe we were here. What's going on? And we wanted to make sure we also kept the prices where they weren't so outrageous. So I would look at it like we're an expensive restaurant, but certainly we could be a lot more expensive. So we're trying to keep holding back the prices. I'm holding the reins back so that people can come in, everybody can come in, and they can have this experience.
No, so I mean, I'm a foodie. I've been around the block with different restaurants and stuff. I was surprised at the prices where they were. Yeah. Especially after having tasted the food. But it makes sense. You want to let the world and the audience know that you guys are here and come try the food. Are there people that come every week?
We do have some regulars now, and these are some of the over the last maybe since November, we started to develop some true regulars that are there 2 or 3 times a week at least. And then the bar is it's a cool bar to sit at, and I have a whole you can come in and just get some raw bar items. You can come in and just get a steak tartare, the tuna tartare. You can get the caviar, you can get just oysters, you can get shrimp, but every one of those oysters are going to be the best. They're going to be Beaujolais, or the shrimp are going to be Cabanero, or they're going to be, just outrageous.
You got to educate me on this. How do you know what oysters are good versus bad?
Well, I have my favorites. I happen to be an East Coast oyster guy, but chefs could sit here all day and argue the West Coast versus the East Coast. So if you're doing the West Coast oysters, they're the more creamy oysters. They have the deeper shell. They're like a white color, Komodo, whatever. And the East Coast kind of give you that pow, that salt, that it's almost I don't know if this sounds good to anybody else, but for me, it smells like you're in Coney Island a little bit.
A little bit,
The good parts of Coney Island. Yeah. I grew up going to Coney Island, so I remember it in a very good light. But Blue Point, Long Island, those oysters are outrageous too, or Melpeck. Jersey's got awesome oysters. Jersey's got Cape Mays. So after the hurricanes that we all had to go through and all that recovery, the oyster market actually went great in New Jersey. It turned it around. So Cape May oysters are fantastic. But me personally, I like Beaujolais. I really do like them. Prince Edward Island. They're small to medium size. They're delicate. They're just great. They give you all that flavor, but they're not too big and overwhelming.
So it's just like how in Italy, no matter where you are in the country, the ingredients are different. So similarly, the oysters are different based on the water that they're from.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
I
And you
I
got
always
Washington State has a lot of oysters now. You can go in Hood Canal, that whole region inside.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's
right.
like 3 kind of versions of oysters now, and somebody could beat it up even more and say there's 10.
But then you started describing shrimp. Shrimp are different too based on what water they come from?
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure. Well, I just mentioned Cabanero shrimp.
So what is
Where
is that?
It's Spanish, Portugal, that whole region. All right. So have you ever seen like when you see like commercials or a movie or something, and the shrimp are this bright red, like crazy color? That's Cabanero shrimp.
Okay.
And when you open them up, and what I like to do is I also serve them hot. And when you cook them, they have this fat cap, and you just kind of just push it, and all this natural, awesome fat comes out, and it's bright red, of course. And so I usually serve it with something bright green or another color that's like bright, so that they mix together. I think I was doing it with asparagus risotto, and it's outrageous.
Yeah.
So I like to come out to the dining room. I cut the top, but I let them kind of like do it with their knife. I come out, explain it, and I take the shrimp and I squeeze the head out, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, this is," and you can smell all that.
Yeah.
It's really great. Really cool experience, but that's the difference. So it's like, well, what's the difference between this shrimp cocktail and that shrimp cocktail? Well, one's outrageously crazy, emotional, experience, and one is, it's okay. You've had it. We've all had it before.
No, for sure. So I guess the last question I have for you on this is, have you ever like trained or tried other types of cuisine, like Indian cuisine or like some of the Asian stuff? I mean, like, what do you cook at home? Because that's a 2-part question.
That is a 2-part question.
Yeah.
So the first part of the question is, so there used to be a thing in I guess it was probably the whole world, but I looked at the food world as New York, and then I know a lot of people might look at me like, that's crazy, Brian. What about this place and what about that place? And now all these. For me, it was just because I remember Mr. Cyril Macchione used to say, fusion is confusion. And he didn't like fusion. Nobody uses the word fusion anymore, but it was because everything's everything now, right? There's ingredients all over the place. You didn't have to just outsource from only certain vendors for certain food. So he hated fusion. But at the same time, he created it by bringing in the chefs from Italy, from bringing in the chefs from France. At that time, there was a chef, Sota Kuhn, who was Cambodian, I think. Yeah, Cambodian. He was one of Danielle's number 2s, and then just ran Le Cirque. He was just incredible, awesome chef. So he starts putting sriracha on everything before sriracha was a big thing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, so it was all happening. So as you say, Indian cuisine, it all happens, or whatever ethnic cuisine it is, it really happens in our staff meals. So it's a thing called family meal. I think everybody kind of knows what that is now. And it's a food that you want to feed the staff before they go out and see all this awesome food. You don't want hungry waiters. That's the last thing you need. You want everybody fed before service. And and one day it might be a Colombian guy making it. One day it might be an American guy. It might be whatever person making it that day. And this food is just like, okay, great. And you have to encourage that. You have to say, don't just make it like, you think we want it. Go for it, and then offer some vegetarian dishes. Always have a salad.
Wait, so what does a chef like you make at home?
So that's a great question. So when I cook at home, I hardly cook at home. My wife's an awesome cook.
Okay.
And I really don't want to even mess around with it a lot, And when I come in, it gets too technical, and it gets like, it's not fun for anybody. So when I cook, it's fun for me. But everybody else in the room is just like, oh, I'm like, well, don't do that. Oh, no, don't do that. So when I do cook at home, I'll if I'm making homemade pasta or I'm butchering fish or I'm making, I like to make a porchetta, for like Easter or something. That's what I like to do, like Easter or Christmas, something like this.
Yeah.
I'll make like a big porchetta, which is like a stuffed pork dish. And it's just beautiful. And it's technical and it takes a minute. And that's why a lot of people don't want to make it. But it's so rewarding, or whole pieces, like a crown roast. Was great, or a little suckling pig is great. Things that my wife doesn't want to do. So I'm not taking away from her, but yeah, she's a great cook. So.
That's a great way to put it. So same, I mean, I can throw down in the kitchen. I'm no Chef Brian Walter by any means, but my wife, very similarly, the stuff that she doesn't want to do, that's when I'll step into the kitchen and just take care of it. And I remember there was a time in my life, like, I would infuse my own olive oils. I would infuse and like marinate things for like days on end before I would cook it. Like just like the smallest, make my own pickles, like just like the smallest little things. She looks at me like I'm crazy. She's like, "Why are you doing all this? Like, we can just buy it ready to go." I was like, "It's just different."
Yeah.
It's just different when you do it yourself because I can control the acidity, I can control the spice, I can control the umami or whatever it is that I want.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
It's rewarding.
I
You
enjoy it
made
a
your
lot.
own pickles.
Yeah.
You're eating something that you made. It didn't take a minute. It took a little longer than a minute. It took a few days, or it took a year, or however it takes to make your dish. It's just funny. My wife the other day, I come home and there's she was making. I didn't even know she was making her own sausage. So we have a dried sausage like salamis and stuff like that, and it was just great. It was awesome. It tasted unique. It was special. I remember one time a guy brought over one of the things I used to do, because I owned 2 Irish pubs for a little while.
Okay.
I actually won Best Burger in New Jersey 2 years in a row.
Look at
which was
that.
awesome. New Jersey Monthly Magazine. I'm very proud of that. Funny enough, the things I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Like that was like, there's a lot of burger places.
There's a lot of burger places.
And when I got that, I was like, in the second year, and it was Best Mac and Cheese too. And it was just like, the same thing I beat myself about this menu. I beat myself up about the burger menu because we wanted to make it the best. But I used to say because I can't, if somebody kills a deer, right, or hunts or whatever, I can't serve that deer, right? It's not FDA regulated, blah, 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 So what I would do is I would tell the guys, the hunters in the winter, I'd be like, listen, if you want me to butcher it for you, I'll butcher it for you, but I get the rib cage, give me the chops. And I would do that. And one time they gave me the whole back of it, and my wife made sausages out of that. And I come home, and my little, I guess he was 3 years old, is stomping on the meat. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing. Like, I forget about my porchetta. This is such good, lessons to learn. And that's my story. Oh, and I also take the rib cage out because, you got these gigantic bones from I don't trim the bones. So I'd walk around like to regulars at my restaurant and be like, hey, who wants some venison? Just came, literally, you can't get fresher than this,
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, it would look so cool.
All right. So I didn't know about the burger award that you had. So what is the best ratio for burgers in your opinion?
I mean, the basics you're always going to say. I mean, not always, but for me, it's going to be 80-20. But then you can say now there's Wagyu and there's Kobe, and you got to put a little brisket in it. You can do this. Okay, yeah. So I added a little brisket to it. For me, Wagyu burgers, things like that, it doesn't do anything for me. Unless you're eating it rare or well done, and I'm never going to eat it well done. So you're never going to really realize the difference in my mind. But if you get an awesome chuck, 80-20 with a bit of, I put a little bit of brisket in there. You get a little bit more beef flavor. But when I won Best Burger, it was lightning in a bottle. So I haven't even been able to quite replicate the exact burger again because we had this little pub. It was called O'Brien's Poorhouse. And this little pub, and we had a flat top grill. And I did $5 burgers. Yeah. The burger cost me $5. I served $5. But, I'd make it on the Guinness or whatever, right? So there would be lines out around the block for this burger. It was a 10-ounce burger. And the buns we made from the breadsmith in Cranford. I came up with this bun with her, this lady, Kathy, very cool lady. It was a mixture of brioche, because I thought brioche was a little bit too greasy, like the bun. And I was kind of done with eating a burger and having to why are my hands always so greasy? Anyways, and then we mixed it with a Parker roll. So it had the sweetness of a brioche, and it was just heavy, and it had to hold up to a 10-ounce burger. So it was just dynamic. And then we don't have a grill in the back, but I like flame broiled, so I'd get those cast iron grill plates to get that flame taste. But now you're banging out so many burgers that flames are going all over the place, and the fat just keeps recirculating itself. And then I'd finish the burgers on the flat top because you can only get the grill's this big. You get enough grills, and boom, 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 and then you bring it up to temperature. And now that's the one we're cooking the onions on, and that's the flat top we're cooking the bacon on and the mushrooms. So it's just developing like this flavor profile that can't be replaced. Yeah. And now it's a 10-ounce burger, so it holds a temperature so well that when you're eating it, let's say you get medium rare, and it's just like lightly, even though it rested, it's still like lightly dripping down this side of your mouth, and you're just, it was the best. Very exciting, that burger.
I love hearing you talk about food.
Oh, man. I love it. I love talking about it. It's like, the joy of my life. When you asked me to come down here, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. This is what I do.
So let's flip the script. Do you have any questions for me?
Sure. Well, you're a very interesting guy, number one. It's a pleasure to meet you. We met, I don't know, a few months ago. We came down to the restaurant. Very exciting to see how you've changed this whole studio and upgraded it. And you've even helped us with some photo shoots and given your knowledge and guidance in so many ways. So I mean, I'm kind of in awe of everything you do. So I don't know if I have any questions, but it's certainly, I love hearing about it. Maybe what got you started? I mean, you'd said that you kept your photos, your cameras.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I had access to a computer when most people didn't. My father was in the computer industry, so when he was learning how to do like really hardcore computer programming stuff, I would just kind of be there to watch sometimes. So I think I must have been 11 or 12, and I knew how to do like C++ programming.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, I'm super outdated at this point of what we're talking about, right? This is so old. This is when the computer screen didn't even have color, right? It was just black and yellow, right? It was just like DOS prompt and everything.
Okay.
But I remember there were times where like I would help my dad because like he would just be frustrated staring at something and be like, "Dad, you forgot a period here, or you forgot this there," and he would just look at me like, "How do you know this?" But I learned it from watching him. And then
So your dad, you made your dad proud. When
I would
see
hope
you getting
so.
better.
Yeah, I would hope so. So at one point, my parents had a multitude of jobs, right? And so 90s television ended up being a huge influence on me. I mean, we're talking about Family Matters. Laura Winslow would want to get a prom dress, but then her mother and her aunt would come up with a scheme because Carl Winslow was like this cheap guy who didn't want to spend money.
TGIF.
So they would show Carl Winslow 3 dresses, like a $10 dress that was like tattered up, and like $100 dress, the one that Laura really wanted, and like a $1,000 dress. And then they would come home and be like, "Dad, I want the $1,000 dress." And Carl would be like, "There's just no way I can afford the $10 dress." But then, of course, the mom is like, "If you get her the $10 dress, you're never going to sleep in the bedroom again." She's like, "All right, let's do the $100 dress." And then he walks away thinking he still won because he didn't get the $1,000 dress. But secretly, they're all high-fiving each other, right? Because they convinced him to get the dress she really wanted. And then you see, like, Saved by the Bell with Zach Morris getting away with everything possible on this, like, planet Earth that they could never possibly age well in the culture and the world that we live in now.
Sure.
But they had this idea of the art of persuasion and woo that I just absorbed throughout watching television, and then getting a background in tech from having access to things that most people didn't have access to. I was able to apply those two things together in the most basic formats you could think of, like Microsoft Word, where you're probably opening up to write your notes for the menu or whatever. I'm just really good at formatting Microsoft Word documents, picking the fonts and the size of the fonts and the weight of the font and whatever I want to do, which eventually led me to designing PowerPoint presentations, which eventually led to Photoshop, which eventually led to everything in the world of marketing, of graphic design and websites and you name it, right? A lot of it's self-taught. And there was a couple moments in my life where I think designers creating other designers is a real thing, where a guy that taught me some of the basics in the beginning, his name's Amish Sheldon.
Okay.
I don't know if you watch my podcast, but that's the one shout out and only shout out you're going to get, buddy. But I sat with him when he was designing a flyer, and he taught me some of the basics. And so then I took what I learned from him, and then I must have created 20 or 30 graphic designers at this point in my career, people who've learned from me. But I just found out that I had a superpower of getting people to see something and they emotionally connect with it based on the imagery and the typography that I would put on whatever it is. I mean, you saw the videos we made for you in the restaurant and everything. There's an emotional connection when you watch it. Yeah, some of the videos are too long, but it's on purpose.
Yeah.
But if you start seeing the social media videos, which if you don't follow Chef Brian on Instagram, definitely follow the restaurant at 87 Sussex, right?
Yeah.
And then what's your personal handle?
Oh, man, I'm so sorry. B Walter 676, something like that.
We tag him on the 87 Sussex page all the time. But you start seeing the videos and the shot selection that we had.
Yeah.
You can taste the food from watching the video, right?
Yeah.
You can feel the heat in watching the flames that come up the side of the pan.
Yeah.
You can see the sizzle of the water, the oil droplets, the sauce. And there's a mouth-watering experience that happens through showing it where it gets people to like, I need to go to Open Table and book a reservation right now. Similarly, when we do things like graphics, like an email campaign or anything, there's an actual science behind color theory. There's an actual science behind the amount of space in between words and how many words are in a sentence. And again, I put it down to studying the greats, right? I would study how Martin Luther King would give speeches.
Okay.
And there's timing to when he takes a break, right? When he says like, I have a dream, there's a reason that there's like a certain pause at certain points and inflections and places where he raises his voice, right? And then the intonation, the volume, all of it matters.
Yeah.
So I apply as much of that as I possibly can, sometimes subconsciously, sometimes, intentionally, but it's through being obsessive that really got me to be as good as I am at what I do. And yet you could hear me talk about it, and I'm sure you're getting, the same type of goosebumps that I would get when you talk about food.
I get excited about it.
I love it. I love that ability to create an emotional connection with something through some type of digital media, and the fact that I get to do it every single day. It's
what an
just
honor.
Awesome.
How cool is that? Yeah, no, I feel exactly the same way. Like, every day I get to do what I love, or you get to do what you love. I hope everybody gets that one day in their life, to be able to do whatever they love.
Yeah,
and make it not a job to go to. Like, I couldn't even think about it. Like, I'm also blessed that my parents figured out a way to send me to culinary school. My mother was an actress and my father a minister. Yeah. So I grew up in the church, and it's not like there was like so much expendable income floating around.
Of course.
But they always made it happen, and without me feeling, guilt or anything like this, they always did it. And I couldn't even imagine being in a cubicle or something. Like, my brain just wouldn't work that way,
So that brings up a funny story for me. Growing up, your parents could cook? Or did you?
Yeah. I grew up, my grandmother was right off the boat from Italy. And so we'd go to, although we lived in New Jersey, we'd go to Brooklyn for all of our holidays, go to Gravesend, all that awesome food. Yeah.
So I grew up with a lot of South Asian friends, and I had friends that just hated Indian food. Okay. And I couldn't possibly imagine how that's possible. I didn't find out till much later in life that I was spoiled rotten. My mother had a culinary training background, and my grandmother also had a culinary training background. And the food that they were making was like the highest end food you're going to get in Indian cuisine. Like, my mother could have, she probably still can, but like just destroy in like a Chopped TV show where you just get a bunch of ingredients and she just like make something. Watching her cook throughout my life is probably why I can throw down in the kitchen, right? Because I understand, in the older generations, like, there's no measuring, right? You measure with love and by sight and by feel and touch. I do this. My wife hates it. I don't measure anything in the kitchen. I just know what I want to put into something. But I just remember one day when I was much older, and I went to a friend's house, and I guess there was a dish presented to me, and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, no wonder you hated Indian food growing up.
It's horrible. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I had it so lucky that my mother was cooking the types of food that she would cook. And I remember, like, I had extended family members that would come visit us. And my mother would just put out a feast for everyone. Like, she would know what dish would make this person cry because they hadn't had it in 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, she just knew. Like, the way a DJ knows what song to play when they see people walking in. She just knew what to make these people that would come to the house. And I remember when growing up, like, I wanted to be a chef. And like, that was a thing that I thought was going to be my passion in life. I found that I had other superpowers, and, I might have had a different direction to take. But I did own a restaurant for a little bit in New Jersey for a while. We could talk about that offline. Yeah. But
Indian restaurant?
It was like an Indian fast food chain thing that I was trying to do with one of my friends, and kind of like the Indian Chipotle. There's a bunch of them now here in New Jersey. But we were pioneers in our timeline, maybe a little too early for what we were trying to do. But it's always interesting for me to hear how people's palates developed when I understand, like, did you learn your palate from eating cuisine from grandma? Did you learn your palate from going and studying food overseas? Is it self-taught?
No, I mean, I have traveled now. I've traveled, I'd like to say, around the world. I've been to a lot of... Funny enough, the place I haven't been to is, like, I haven't been to Paris. Like, things like
Paris?
This. No, but I've been to Istanbul, and I've been to Slovakia, and I've been to Greece, and I've been to, obviously, Bulgaria. My wife's from there. I've been to Italy, things like that. But like in Ireland, I'd like to,
But you've been to
family's
France?
from there. No, haven't been to France.
France is an entire country.
Been to Vienna. I mean, I've been all over the place, but I just haven't been there.
Do you like Rome, or do you like the countryside in Italy?
Haven't traveled to the countryside yet. So I really have to actually. That's where I was. I'd spend time in Rome. No, I've studied it. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to have that time. And I really want to go and, like, just stay. You know, when I go, I'd like to be there like a month or something like that. You know, I'd also like to be in New Orleans for a month. You know, so there's a lot of things I want to do. You know, New Orleans is one of my favorite places to eat. So heavy-handed food.
Oh my God,
it's just mama food.
The first time I had gumbo in New Orleans,
yeah,
it was an orgasm in my mouth. It was incredible.
Yeah, nuts.
I just didn't understand you could put that much flavor into a single bite. And then the lady who served me had a Jersey attitude, and I loved it. I was like, this is
a lot
awesome.
of industry people there. When I went last time I was there, they knew I was in the business because we talk or whatever. And I volunteer whenever I travel. I try to get into any restaurant to be there at least 2 hours to work for free in the back of the kitchen to kind of just feel it, right?
Yeah.
So I went to Commander's Palace. I think they had me shucking oysters for 2 hours, something like that. But you know, I'm walking around, you know, I'm just you know, absorbing all the cool stuff they're doing. Oh, and then Antoine's is another place down there. It's just awesome. I was in the kitchen there. That's where they made the first Oysters Rockefeller.
That's right.
And they still do it. Totally different than what we do for Oysters Rockefeller.
Very different from what you do, for sure.
Yeah.
But something you have to try.
You have. Oh, it's outrageous. I've actually replicated it a few times because when you get, that's the cool thing about working in the kitchens there. Yeah. You get to take those recipes with you, and it's but you almost have to name it something else because they're like, this isn't Rockefeller. This isn't what I usually eat, you know. But I will say a fun fact about Grandma. You know, all of our, or wherever you remember as a person where you would go for food, there's a study that shows there's bacteria all over the place, everywhere. And obviously we all know that, but you know, there's also at Grandma's house or whatever. I'm just going to use that as my grandma's. There's always, and there's going to be that, not just the bacteria, but the smell, but that bacteria gets into everything they cook.
Yeah.
Everything that they are, the air, everything of this. And that's one of the reasons why it's impossible to replicate the dishes that this person you loved or who you taught made. No matter if they can give you the recipe all day of the week, but that bacteria is not around anymore. And that was actually a study they did at Harvard. And you know, there's this thing you can do called edX. Have you ever heard of edX?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So I use the culinary version, but you can like learn Spanish from Valencia University if you'd like.
Right.
You know, you can, and it's all free. It's like a give back, and I do that. So I'll take courses at, you know, I think most of them are at Harvard for gastronomy, and just learning the different science behind food, and learning that was a real, okay, I get it. So that's why maybe I can't replicate that burger exactly like I wanted to. You had to be in that moment at that time, you know. That's
happened to me so many times, right? I cooked this one dish that I just loved, and I can never replicate it, and I can't figure out why. But
yeah, could be that pan you were using. It could be the olive oil that you were using that one day that you just don't even think about. It's that one missing thing, you know.
Yeah. But the one thing that I think everyone at home should try is your food.
Right? Yeah,
and
please.
I mean, this is an open invitation. Go check out 87 Sussex. They take reservations on an open table.
Yeah.
The chef will probably come out and greet you himself at some point.
Absolutely.
He loves doing it. And definitely let him know that you saw him on the podcast, right?
Yeah,
and
when you come into our restaurant, you walk in the door, and I have this little tiny pass, we call it, because we pass the food through it, right? And that's me. You'll see me in there. I open it up, and you'll just say, you know, say, hey, chef, what's up? I come out, I'll talk about the food, and this is one of the true joys of my life, so.
And if they ask you for a password, the word is grandma. Just say grandma.
Grandma.
Whatever you want.
Grandma's meatballs.
Well, thanks for coming on. How did it go for you?
My pleasure. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Anytime you ever want me to come on, I love it. You're great, and this is such a, you know, sophisticated environment, so thank you.
We love having you here. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.